Yes, you can start now.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So I hope my screen and my voice both are fine for all of you. So I will be continuing the same series where I will be basically dealing with the current affairs, which was in the news, and that directly falls into the polity section. So you must be knowing what are the advantages to study everything in a consolidated way. So without wasting much time, I will start. So yeah, so previously we have discussed about anti-defection law and other news which was there in the news. So let's talk about today's class. So recently, it is related with the Legislative Council. So recently, Andhra Pradesh Assembly passed a resolution to abolish Legislative Council. So that this much only was in the news. Okay, now before I proceed further, I would like to tell you a few things, like what kind of things can ask into the examination, especially prelims, since we are focusing right now on the prelims examination. So basically there can be a question related with the abolition and creation of the Legislative Council. Second, there can be a question like in these kind of amendment or the rules, do we require Article 368? Third, what kind of majority is needed when it comes to the abolition or the creation of the Legislative Council? So all these things you need to know very carefully when you are actually targeting this news, because definitely not even the state service examination, they will ask which state recently passed a resolution for the abolition of the Legislative Council. So I'm sure you must be knowing what are the provision related with the formation and the abolition of the Legislative Council. I will not go into the details. You must be knowing the articles which are involved for the creation and the abolition of the Legislative Council. That is nothing but the Article 169. Under detail mein kya hai, you must be knowing, and you can revise when you're reading your polity subject. Then what kind of the majority needed for the passing for such kind of the resolution? So basically a special majority needed. I'm sure you must be knowing the differences between the special majority and the simple majority. Okay, so what is the another thing to remember from this news? What you need to pick, actually you need to be very smart to picking up the things that can come into your examination, whether it is a prelims or the mains examination. So number one, you need to know all the laws related with the abolition and the formation of the Legislative Council. Then there can be a question related with the article. Then there can be a question like how it can pass. So you must be knowing that basically under Article 69, state, they will pass a resolution with using special majority, and then after the resolution has passed, it will move to the parliament, and then parliament can make laws under Article 168. तो ये सारी चीजें हैं. अच्छा, from here what you can pick from the history? So you need to know the acts which give the power to create bicameralism. I'm sure you must be knowing that bicameralism is nothing but the having two houses, and having two houses is nothing but in the state we have we have state legislative assembly and state legislative council. What else can be important from this topic? So basically right now we have a total 6 states who is having legislative council, and they are Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Maharashtra, Karnataka. One more thing I want to tell you, when you are reading this news and how you're going to supplement, number one, you need to understand what are the advantages and disadvantages of the Legislative Council, having a Legislative Council, why most of the states does not have legislative councils, why Andhra Pradesh Assembly passed the resolution. So these things you need to know in a detailed manner, and when you are preparing for your examination, it's advisable to have a fair idea. So one more important thing that again I want to discuss, Generally, we have this tendency to compare our Lok Sabha with the Legislative Assembly and Rajya Sabha with Legislative Council. So when it comes to Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly, most of the rules are similar. But when it comes to the Rajya Sabha and Legislative Council, not all the power which Rajya Sabha enjoys is applicable to the Legislative Council also. So please read it in detail, like what are the powers of the Legislative Council, and is it having a same kind of power which the Rajya Sabha is having? So basically, these things you need to study in the details. So I have told you what are the things you need to pick for the examination point of view. So that's all for this topic. Second, our second topic is leader of opposition. Okay, अब news में क्यों था वो देख लेते हैं पहले. So basically, in recent Lok Sabha election, none of the political party were able to secure minimum 10% strength required to be eligible for leader of opposition. यहाँ से आपकी news खत्म हो जाती है. But your preparation will not end from here itself. Why? Because there are multiple questions that can come into the prelims examination. Number one, there can be a question related with the leader of opposition, means when you will say that, okay, now this particular party is eligible for the leader of opposition. So they have to minimum secure 10% of the strength, which sometimes also known as the quorum. So this is the number one like criteria. Second thing, there can be a question in the prelims examination, who will recognize that this party is has all the criteria to fulfilling the leader of opposition. So when it comes to the legislative assembly, or when it comes to the Lok Sabha, the power goes to the presiding officer. Now the second question arises here: who is the presiding officer of the Lok Sabha? So it is nothing but the speaker. Okay. And when it comes to the legislative, Rajya Sabha, the chairman of the council of the state. So basically, जो chairman होता है, वो decide करता है. So that's all important for this particular news. So basically, in the recent Lok Sabha election, none of the political party were able to secure 10% of the strength to be for the eligible of the leader of opposition post. Now, there can be another question like, Lok Sabha leader of opposition enjoys the rank of a cabinet minister and is a member of panel that selects candidate for a key constitutional and statutory post like CBC, CBI, director, Lokpal, etc. So this thing, when it comes to prelims examination, maybe there can be a question related with what is the role of the leader of opposition, जो भी होता है उसका. And the second, when it comes to the mains examination, maybe there can be a question. वैसे इतना simple question नहीं पूछेंगे, but हो सकता है कि what is the role of leader of opposition in the government or in the parliament. So you must be knowing all these body like CBC, CBI, Lokpal. These are the things that ensure the democracy in the country, that checks actually the power of executive. So here, if they will not having any says, तो फिर जो current government होगी, they can become a very autocratic in the nature. So all these things are important for the common sense and for the basic understanding. So okay, इसके अलावा तो यहाँ पे कुछ important नहीं है. Okay, the next topic is private members bill. So news में क्यों था ये? So a private member bill was proposed in the Rajya Sabha that seeks removal of the limit on the candidate election expenditure and proposed state funding of election. अच्छा, एक चीज हमेशा याद रखना, when you are reading anything, be it your static portion or current affairs, you need to read in between the lines. Means you have to pay attention in the words itself. See here, news में बस इतना था कि there was a private member bill that initiated in the Rajya Sabha that seeks the removal of the limit on the candidate election and candidate election expenditure, and then another the proposed state funding of the election. अच्छा, so यहाँ पे I will be telling you what kind of question can come into the examination and how they will play with the words itself. So before see, news तो यहाँ पे खत्म हो जाती है, but your work will not finish here itself. So you need to know many things before I go into the topic in detail. Number one, for your examination point of view, especially if I'll talk about current affair prelims. So basically, number one, you need to know about the private member bill in detail. Okay, number one, this can come into examination. Second, government government bill. This is also becomes important. Third, you have seen the there will be a certain cap on the candidate election, especially in the Lok Sabha. So election commission automatically become important for the prelims point of view. Now, what kind of question can come into the examination? The composition, okay. Then its tenure. Second, whether it's a constitutional body or not. Okay, then there can be a question related with the political role of the political party with the Election Commission of India. And it can also extend up to the State Election Commission versus वहां का जो भी होगा. Now see what happens. Exam may suppose they will ask any question related with the Election Commission. That time we have this tendency, अरे ये तो news में था नहीं, कहाँ से question उठा के पूछ लिया. So that's how UPSC has a tendency to pick the topic in the prelims and then we think अरे ये तो news में था नहीं फिर भी आ गया और ये 3 साल पहले news में था. So ऐसा नहीं होता. There will be a certain relation when you will solve some mocks. अभी जब आप लोग mock solve करोगे, you will be having if you will analyze, you will get to know कि generally even in the mock they are framing the question related with the करंट अफेयर्स न्यूज और वो कहाँ से पिक करेंगे ऐसे स्टैटिक पोर्शन से जिसका कभी नाम हुआ होगा. तो चलो जो न्यूज में है उसको एक बार क्लियरली देख लेते हैं. सो दीज थिंग्स यू नीड टू नो फॉर द प्रीलिम्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. I know you guys will be studying the whole polity, but you have to take care of these topics in the detail so that you will easily able to find the correct answer. Now, let's talk about this news itself. So basically, difference क्या है प्राइवेट मेंबर बिल एंड गवर्नमेंट मेंबर बिल में? सिंपल सा डिफरेंस है भाई. एनी मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट हु इज नॉट अ मिनिस्टर इज रिफर्ड एज अ प्राइवेट मेंबर. तो एनी मेंबर हमारा पार्लियामेंट है. इस पार्लियामेंट में देयर विल बी अ मल्टीपल मेंबर. Not all the member will be known as the minister. So people who are not having any ministerial portfolio, they will be generally known as the private member. So they can initiate some bills. ऐसा नहीं कि they have any restriction to initiate any bill. Now the difference क्या है? ये important है. तो simple सा difference है. If you want to introduce any government bill, then you don't need any prior notice. You don't need to bring any prior notice. But when it comes to the private member bill, it requires 1 month notice, number one. Second, it can be only, I'm talking about private member bill, it can be only introduced on the Friday. Okay. Second thing, अब ये question आप पूछ सकते हो कि क्या अभी तक is this the first bill? No. ऐसे बहुत से बिल इंट्रोड्यूस हो चुके हैं प्राइवेट मेंबर बिल. ना सिर्फ वो इंट्रोड्यूस है, नॉट ओनली दे हैव बीन इंट्रोड्यूस बट दे वर आल्सो पास्ड. ओके. एंड अभी तक 14 प्राइवेट मेंबर बिल इंट्रोड्यूस हो चुके हैं जिसमें 5 ऑलरेडी हैज बिकम लॉ. ओके. देन एक बार ही पढ़ लेना डिफरेंस बिटवीन द लाइक मनी बिल वर्सेस ordinary bill and constitutional bill and so on, and the power, what kind of the special power is having, what kind of the special power is having with president when it comes to all these bills. So ये सारी चीजें डिटेल में पढ़ लेना. So till now we have finished one thing that was related with the private member bill, but as I told you, this topic not only talks about the private member bill, but it has also certain certain content on the removal of the limit on election candidate election expenditure and the proposed state funding of elections. So if I have to pick the important point from this slide, one, I will be studying about the private member bill. Second, I will be going to read more detail on the how the election is happening in our country, especially when it comes to the Lok Sabha or the Legislative Assembly. So you must be knowing, for the Lok Sabha election, there can be two ways. Number one, you can individually contest, and you can contest election under some political party. Okay. Now, as this bill clearly talks about the removal of the limit on the candidate election expenditure. So here they are talking about the individual candidate. They are not talking about the political party. Ki bhai political party pe this is the limit. No. Second thing, they are also talking about to propose state funding of election. Now you must be having this idea, ये क्यों बीच में ला रहे हैं? तो I will tell you, बस मेरी एक लाइन याद रखना, कभी नहीं भूलोगे. There is a saying that everyone are eligible to go to 5-star hotel, but not all the people can go. I hope I am making some sense. मतलब सब 5-star hotel जा तो सकते हैं, लेकिन सारे लोग actually access नहीं कर सकते. Why? Because it's damn expensive. Same goes with the election of the Lok Sabha. Generally, it's not when you are contesting even any election, even if I'll talk about an election which deals in the panchayat itself, trust me, it will minimum take 10 to 15 lakhs if you want to contest election. And when it comes to the Lok Sabha, it will goes even the higher number. So generally, right now there is a limit. And what is the limit on the individual basis? 70 lakhs के ऊपर आपको नहीं करना है. Okay, that was the bill, number one. तो अभी वो बात कर रहे हैं कि we are going to remove this cap, number one. Second, they are also talking about to propose state funding for of election. मतलब अभी state को बोलो कि वो fund करे election के लिए. Now it should not entirely is going to based on the candidate or the political party. Generally, they have to raise the fund. And how they are raising the fund? Again, I'm not going to give more details on that. थोड़ा बहुत तुम लोग भी पढ़ लो. और इम्पोर्टेंट हाँ. सो अभी मेंस में ये क्वेश्चन कैसे बन सकता है? तो प्रीलिम्स के लिए तो बस इतना ही इंपॉर्टेंट है कि प्राइवेट मेंबर बिल क्या है, डिफरेंसेस क्या है, कौन इंट्रोड्यूस करता है, कैसे होता है. दीज आर द थिंग्स फॉर द प्राइवेट मेंबर बिल. सेकेंड, the expense related with the candidate election. So there is a difference between the when an individual is contesting the election and the when some political party is contesting the election. So there's a difference. Ye samajh lo. Second, right now maybe in the mains examination there will be a question like to make our country more democratic and to see more participation from the normal people who even cannot afford, but they have they are eligible and they have all the necessary things to become a good leader, but because they are not having much fund, they lack in the fund, so they are not able to contest election. So for all these things, they are actually bringing such kind of rules. So ये question mains में आएगा, अगर आना होगा तो prelims में नहीं आने वाला. So इतना अभी समझ लो. Okay. See here, it is clearly mentioned there is no ceiling on the campaign expenditure by political party in Lok Sabha and Assembly polls. So there is no ceiling for the political party, but there is a cap for the individual candidate. So I hope this topic is clear. Now, lapsing of bills. Again, ये bills बहुत ज़्यादा आ रहे हैं, तो please इसको अच्छे से पढ़ लेना. So news में क्या था देख लेते. Recently, Vice President called for rethink on the provision that provides for automatic lapsing of bill leading to wastage of time in the Lok Sabha. ठीक है. तो Vice President ने basically एक बात की थी, एक मतलब there was a kind of meeting where they talk about that let's do something so that actually whenever Lok Sabha dissolve and the bill is pending, so क्या होता है, वो lapse कर जाता है. So time का बहुत waste होता है. So because of all these things, they are rethinking or they are thinking about certain changes. So अभी से बात चल रही है. Now, prelims point of view से क्या important है? Number one ये जान लो. उसके बाद we will see this topic in the detail. Number one, there can be a question related with which article deals with the introduction of the bills, introduction and passing of the bills. So Article 107 deals with the introduction and the passing of the bill. Number one. Number two, as we know, Rajya Sabha is a kind of body which is known as a permanent body. वो कभी dissolve नहीं होती है, ठीक है. लोकसभा is the only chamber which dissolve. तो अब वो कब होती है, कैसे होती है, again you have to do that homework. Now there is a question, there are certain rules, like when suppose Lok Sabha dissolve ho gayi, suppose on the dissolution of the Lok Sabha, cases when a bill lapses, so these are the cases, okay, and cases when bill does not lapse. So before you read all these things, see, it's a very tricky if you will remember each and everything, but it becomes very very easy if you will use common sense. Common sense बोले तो बस मैं वो बता देती हूँ कि how you will remember it. सिंपल सा है, लोकसभा डिसॉल्व होती है, ओके. लोकसभा में जनरली कौन होता है, who secures the maximum strength, वही हमारा रूलिंग गवर्नमेंट बनाती है, वही हमारी गवर्नमेंट बनाती है, ओके. या फिर they can make government with the coalition, or maybe if they are having a sufficient majority. So basically Lok Sabha is a chamber where people who are in the majority, basically they make the government. Now ये चीज क्लियर है. ट्रिक क्या है इसको याद करने की, सिंपल सी बात है. राज्यसभा में तो ऐसा नहीं होता. there were multiple cases when the ruling government is in the majority in the Lok Sabha, but when it comes to Rajya Sabha, they were not in the majority. उसका problem ऐसा क्यों है? For that you have to study the chapter Parliament in detail, then you will be understanding कि अच्छा इस वजह से ऐसा होता है. Now important चीज ये है, बस इतना याद रख, इतना समझ लो. Suppose there is a two government, याद करने के लिए बता रही हूँ, मोदी वर्सेस मनमोहन सिंह जी की गवर्नमेंट, इन दोनों की गवर्नमेंट है. सो व्हाट हैपन, जस्ट यूज योर कॉमन सेंस. सपोज सम बिल हैज बीन इंट्रोड्यूस्ड in his tenure, okay, and after the dissolution of the Lok Sabha, when the new government will come, suppose मनमोहन सिंह की गवर्नमेंट आती है या कोई किसी की भी आती है, आप कुछ भी समझ लो, उस टाइम पे there are chances that this current government is not liking the idea of the previous government. Maybe there will be the difference in the ideology, maybe there will be a differences in the priorities. So there will be multiple reasons where the existing government, maybe they don't like the idea or the bills that was initiated in the Lok Sabha. So this is the reason in our constitution they made certain provision when the new government come into the picture. Generally they like to introduce their own policy and their own laws, okay. ये इसलिए होता है, और इसमें clashes ना हो, इस वजह से ऐसा कर देते कि लोकसभा में जो कोई भी बिल होते हैं वो लैप्स हो जाते हैं. एक बार ही अभी ये मैं एग्जांपल देती हूँ तो अच्छे से समझ आ जाएगा. A bill originated in the Lok Sabha. Abhi, right now I'm talking about the cases when the bill doesn't lapse. Sorry, when the bill lapse. So basically, Lok Sabha mein, suppose Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Okay, suppose a bill originated in the Lok Sabha, originate हुआ, but pending in the Lok Sabha, pending पड़ा है, तो वो lapse हो जाएगा. Originate हुआ, pending है, lapse हो ही जाएगा, because new government will come into the picture. Maybe they will not like the idea of the previous government, so lapse हो जाएगा. Second, a bill originated in the Rajya Sabha, passed by the Rajya Sabha, but pending in the Lok Sabha. Again, maybe the new government will come and they are not liking the previous government initiative, lapse हो जाएगा, ठीक है. Third, a bill originated and passed by the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha में originate हो गया, pass भी हो गया है, but pending in the Rajya Sabha, lapse हो जाएगा. Why? Because maybe the new government is not liking the previous government bill, so वो lapse हो जाता है. A bill originated in the Rajya Sabha में originate हुआ, and it went into the Lok Sabha. वहां से they get certain recommendation, and फिर से वो bill, suppose that bill return to the Lok Sabha, but यहाँ पे pending है तो lapse हो जाएगा. तो in short बस इतना याद कर लो कि जब भी कोई government होती है, they want to introduce their own bill, they want to basically they want to make a policy on their own way, because there can be certain differences, but ऐसा नहीं है कि in all the cases this will happen. Sometimes the government is carrying the same bill with certain amendment. You must be knowing like how this Narega renamed as Manrega and so on. So all these things is there. So when you will read from your polity textbook, it will be clear. But if you will read without analyzing, without thinking, trust me, you will forget maximum in 3 to 4 days. Okay, so make sure when you are reading it, ऐसे एग्जाम्पल ले लो, एक गवर्नमेंट है दूसरी गवर्नमेंट है, कैसा फील होगा, ऐसे करके यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड. अच्छा, केसेस कब लैप्स नहीं होता है? अ बिल पेंडिंग इन राज्यसभा बट नॉट पास बाय लोकसभा डज नॉट लैप्स. राज्यसभा में तो स्टार्ट हुआ एंड लोकसभा में पास नहीं हुआ है, तो देयर आर चांसेस वो लैप्स नहीं हो. ठीक है, नई गवर्नमेंट आई, new government came into the picture, now this bill was introduced in the Rajya Sabha, pending in the Rajya Sabha, यहाँ पे गया, तो there are chances कि फिर वो lapse ना हो. Joint sitting के time पे lapse नहीं होगा. Suppose if the president has notified the holding of a joint sitting before the dissolution of the Lok Sabha, again bill lapse नहीं होगा. Second, एक और भी चीज हो सकता है, a bill passed by both the house but pending assent of the president does not lapse. दोनों हाउस ने पास कर दिया बट प्रेसिडेंट का assent बाकी है, तब lapse नहीं होगा. So sometime what happens when existing government, if they think that okay this bill is important, so वो क्या करते हैं, वो उसको लोकसभा राज्यसभा से पास करा लेते हैं if they have the majority in the Rajya Sabha, so that wo, even if the new government will come into the picture, that bill is not going to be lapse. Okay, so ऐसी बहुत सी चीजें होती है. But here again, bill will not lapse, but now there will be certain condition, there will be certain things that maybe that bill will not become a law or act. So all these things please read in detail. There can be a question, there was multiple question in the prelims examination, when it can lapse, when it cannot lapse, what is the provision. So wo अच्छे से पढ़ लेना. Okay, next, cabinet committee recommendation. Okay, recently the central government, read the lines, recently the central government, I'm talking about central government, I'm not talking about parliament, there's a difference. Recently the central government has reconstituted 8 key cabinet committee, read the lines, cabinet committee, including creation of 2 new cabinet committee. Prelims may maximum what they can ask, maybe they can ask the name of those new committees. Okay, then there can be a question related with the chairman of the committee. Numbers, again, they will not ask, it's not that much important. Maybe work पूछ सकते हैं कि भाई इस committee का काम क्या है, and maybe they can ask in this committee, like can leader of opposition is also having certain right, or can other member also become a part of the member of these committee. So ऐसा कुछ question आ सकता है, देख लेना. So basically, what is important? Number one, please make sure you know the difference between the constitutional bodies and the extra constitutional bodies. Okay, this extra constitutional bodies again divided into 2 parts: statutory bodies and then executive bodies. As the name suggests, constitutional, though I'm sure you must be knowing. Statutory, the bodies or the act bodies that is created by the act of parliament. And when it comes to the executive body, these bodies are generally created by the central government on the basis of demand. Okay, so as the name suggests कि executive में कौन से लोग होते, people who are in the basically people who are basically ruling. So these smaller minute details are very much important, otherwise याद करते रह जाओगे, होगा नहीं. So these cabinet committees, they are extra constitutional bodies which are provided by the government of India. Transaction of कुछ तो है date मुझको भी नहीं याद रहती. Transaction of business rule 1961, date is not important. Now they are set up by the Prime Minister according to the need of the time and requirement of the situation. As I told you, it is created by the Prime Minister if he finds or he or she finds okay, right now we need it. then only they will create. Hence, uska number, composition that can vary from time to time. Second important thing, they are basically two types. One is standing, another is ad hoc. As the name suggests, standing, permanent, ad hoc, temporary. Function क्या है भाई? क्या काम है? Simple सा काम है. जब ये demand, if few thing is coming into the picture on the basis of demand, तो डिमांड क्यों होगी? काम ज्यादा होगा, नहीं कर पा रहे होंगे, कैबिनेट उनकी ओवरबर्डन होंगे, सो दे विल कॉन्स्टिट्यूट सम कमिटीज सो दैट they reduce the work of the government or the cabinet. So that's why that is the sole idea of creating the committees, and that's how they function. Basically they facilitate कि भाई effective policies और कैसे बना सकते हैं. And one more thing, क्या इनका does their recommendation is binding? No, it's not binding. The cabinet can review their decision. Cabinet क्या होता है? I'm sure you must be knowing what comes under the cabinet. Composition में क्या होता है basically? So generally they include cabinet minister only, but it is not compulsory. Generally they include cabinet minister. However, the non-cabinet minister are not debarred from their membership. मतलब even person cabinet minister, they can also be part of the. अगर for example parliament में लोकसभा की strength for example 540 है, for example. Now not all the people will be having certain ministries, or not all the people can be a part of cabinet. So what about the other people? So those kind of people can come into these kind of committees. Okay, okay, this is one thing. Now the second important thing is एक बारी question आया भी था. So who will be the head of the committee? So always remember one thing. Generally, whenever the prime minister is involved in any committee, he invariably preside over it. Generally 99%. But sometimes there are certain committees where the prime minister is not a member. So that time maybe another person will become the like chairperson and so on. So what are the basically earlier we had 6 committees. 2 committees have been constituted. So I'm just reading it so that at least you can recall in the examination. Number 1 is appointment of committee for cabinet, cabinet committee on economics affairs, cabinet committee on the parliamentary affairs, cabinet committee on political affairs, cabinet committee on security, cabinet committee on the accommodation. So maybe they can ask a question related with their strength, their leader, their work. There can be one question that may arise. What are the 2 new committees? Maybe in examination this can come. So the 2 new committee is cabinet committee on investment and growth, as the name suggests. Okay, this committee is basically okay. So this committee is going to basically, they are going to work, or they are basically going to identify the key projects required to be implemented on a time-bound basis. Sorry. It will also monitor the progress of these kind of projects, and basically in what area they are going to work: infrastructure and manufacturing areas. Second is cabinet committee on employment and skill development. Again, name से ही पता चल जाता है. It is supposed to provide direction to all policies, programs, scheme and initiative for skill development aimed at increasing the employability of the workforce. So you must be knowing that in India, the employment ratio is literally low. Like even the people who are highly educated or qualified, they're not getting the employment. Recently, there was a funny news which was going on the viral in internet, that recently IIT Delhi has issued a person who can handle docs, and the qualification for that post is graduation, BA, BCom, BTech, something like that, and they should be fluent in English. So बहुत मजाक बन रहा है इस न्यूज पे कि now even if you have to handle docs, you have to be graduate. So now you can understand what kind of the situation is going on in our country, but it's okay. Fine. So Prime Minister is a part of 6 panel except for the Committee on Accommodation and Committee on the Parliamentary Affairs. So basically these blue which I have highlighted, इन दोनों का प्राइम मिनिस्टर पार्ट नहीं है. Rest for all the committees, Prime Minister is a part of those committee, and that's why he preside these committee. So maybe there can be a question related with this, like uh, क्या cabinet committee on parliamentary affairs का prime minister, whether he is a part of this committee, yes or no, maybe this kind of question. But ठीक है, देख लेना, एग्जाम में कुछ भी पूछ सकते हैं. And one more thing, before attempting your examination or when you are going to attempt your examination और अभी जब पढ़ रहे हो, तो there is a one thing, cost benefit analysis एक होता है, इसको देख लेना. There is no point of wasting so much time on the topic where even you feel that you may not get the 100% result. तो important चीजें आइडेंटिफाई कर लो, क्या हो सकता है, क्या आ सकता है. ऐसी माइन्यूट डिटेल पे इतना जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. मूविंग ऑन. So हमारा legislature खत्म हो गया. The next topic is the center state relations. So here we are going to study about NITI Aayog, जो न्यूज में था. I will not tell you the details. Then rationalization of the centrally sponsored schemes, promotion of Hindi language, Article 131, removal of Article 370 and 35A, inner line permit, Northeastern Council, interstate council, and these two, Dadar and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu merged, and sixth schedule. So these are things we are going to finish today. Let's see. As I told you, I will not be telling you the background, the composition, and other things related with NITI Aayog. So basically, why it was in the news. So, one second. Yeah. So recently, government has reconstituted NITI Aayog, renaming Rajiv Kumar as vice chairman and appointing Home Minister as ex-officer member. Okay. ठीक है, तो ये तो न्यूज में था. लेकिन from this topic, what kind of question can come into examination? See, use your current affair as your navigator, as your GPS. Okay, if in news only this much has come, don't think that okay बस काम हो गया. अब नीति आयोग आया है तो कुछ चीजें जान लो. So basically, NITI Aayog versus Planning Commission. Okay, now थोड़ा सा बैकग्राउंड है कि प्लानिंग कमीशन, यू मस्ट बी नोइंग, 1950 में आया था. इट वाज बेसिकली it was not a constitutional body, right? It wasn't a constitutional body. Then what was its roles? इसका रोल क्या था? And finally, yeah, so these things maybe they can ask a question. And actually there was a multiple question from the planning commission. Question क्या थे? I will tell you. मध्य प्रदेश स्टेट पब्लिक सर्विस कमीशन, जस्ट लाइक आपका कर्नाटका में होता है और फिर अदर स्टेट्स में होता है. देयर वाज अ क्वेश्चन इन 2013 when planning commission came into the picture, when it got constituted. So again 1950, many students they marked it in incorrect. Why? Because they thought abhi to independence mila hai, abhi to constitution aaya hai, how can they constitute even in the same year? So like that. Second, there was a multiple question in prelims 2013 UPSC. ठीक है, क्या था क्वेश्चन? Number 1, planning commission is a constitutional body or not? That was a question. Second, who is the chairman of the planning commission? मतलब और भी options थे, but ये main था. Then NDC, National Development Council, that works under planning commission or not? Something like that. So if they want to go, see, because NITI Aayog came into the picture and it replaced planning commission. कब replace किया था? 2014 में. 15 से finally NITI Aayog came into the light. Then so maybe there can be a question. पढ़ के जाने में कोई बुराई नहीं है. प्लानिंग कमीशन बेसिकली काम क्या करता था? 5 years प्लान्स बनाता था. कितने टोटल प्लान्स बना चुके थे? 12 प्लान्स बना चुके थे. लास्ट प्लान इनका कब खत्म हुआ? 2012 to 2017 में इनका खत्म हो गया. ठीक है, ये सारी चीजें तो हो गई आपकी प्लानिंग कमीशन की. नाउ लेट्स टॉक अबाउट द नीति आयोग. So basically, NITI Aayog and Planning Commission. I'm just writing in the short so that we won't waste much time. So my advice will be for all of you to study about the differences and the similarity between the Planning Commission and NITI Aayog. एक क्वेश्चन मैं यही अभी बता देती हूँ. Does NITI Aayog has the power to allocate funds to the state? Okay, so actually NITI Aayog does not have these kind of the power, but Planning Commission was having. Here it is clearly mentioned. Their main work was to implement 5-year plan and to provide the finance to the state. When it comes to the NITI Aayog, they don't have such kind of provision. Second thing, एक तो difference ये है दोनों में कि like Planning Commission, they generally talk about the 5-year plans. So basically long term plan की ये बात करते थे, मतलब 5 year में. When it comes to NITI Aayog, they make short term versus long term. Vision 2020, 2030, 10 साल के लिए भी बना लेते हैं. So these are the basic differences. Again, please go and read and get more idea and more detail about the NITI Aayog, differences between Planning Commission, NITI Aayog, and who is the chairperson, then composition and everything. Okay, so NITI Aayog का full form है National Institution for Transforming India. Not important, पता है. It is also known as a think tank and advisory body of the government. So it's not. So its recommendation is not binding. It's just an advisory body. जैसे कि मैं बोल दूं भाई ये काम कर लो. Center पे earlier Planning Commission की जो भी like recommendation होते थे, they were mostly binding on the state governments. Here it is not like that. Second, the big difference in the Planning Commission, the state were having a role of observer. They were not having much voices, much opinion. They cannot say no to those recommendations, but here it's an advisory. Here even state is also playing the equal role. So yes, NITI Aayog has lots of advantages. So basically NITI Aayog काम कैसे करता है? So basically it works on the 3 fundamental thing. Number 1, launching of various initiative and program. For example, Saath, Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat. These are some examples. Second, enabling evidence-based policy making and enhancing productive efficiency with the long-term vision. Again, I told you, 10 years, 20 years, something like, itne saal mein India is going to be, India will be having toilets throughout the country, Swachh Bharat, ye wo duniya bhar ka. Then promote entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem. Fine. So ye sari inki cheezein hain. Now, another important thing, composition. I have downloaded it from the PIB. You can also do that. So basically, composition की बात करें तो simple सा है. There will be a chair person who will be nothing but our PM. Then there will be chief executive officer. Okay. Then there will be vice chairperson. Okay. Then इनका एक गवर्निंग काउंसिल होता है. गवर्निंग काउंसिल में all the states will going to participate plus UTs. Okay. Then regional council भी होती है. Okay, members full time, they are having 2 kind of members, full time versus part time. कौन होता है, कैसे होते हैं? There can be a question, do they have a special invitees? Yes, they do have. Why? Again, imagine they want to do something related with the space. Okay, now they are having all the ministers and bureaucrats, and suppose they are not having any idea about the space, then how they are going to make an effective policy? So for that, they will be having a special invitees who will be expert in their respective areas. Okay, so these are the things. अभी देख लेना इस चीज को भी. Moving on. अच्छा, rationalization of centrally sponsored scheme. Okay, I want to tell you one thing. This is important for the mains point of view. Prelims में there will be a very less chance they can ask question, but there can be a question. What kind of a question they can ask, I will tell you. Number 1, news में देख लेते हैं पहले क्यों था. So the chairman of the 15th Finance Commission has voiced that there needs to be further rationalization of the centrally sponsored scheme. See, again, it's a thumb rule. If your basics are not clear, there are high chances, even if you will read current affairs 2 times, 3 times, you will not able to recall. Why? Because you need to understand everything in the detailed manner. So basically, okay, so this was in the news. 15th Finance Commission ने बोला कि there should be a further rationalization of the centrally sponsored scheme. यहीं से हमारा news खत्म. But what are the things that can come into the examination? So I will tell you क्या आ सकता है. Number 1, I'm talking about prelims point of view. Finance Commission. Question क्या आ सकता है Finance Commission से? Whether it's a constitutional body or statutory body, number 1. Number 2, Article 280. Number 3, like this, they will not ask this question, but maybe this you should know. Otherwise, there is no point to study these kind of topic. Like when we have Finance Ministry, okay, then what is the role of Finance Commission? How they are different? Like who allocates the fund between the state and the union? All these things. So all these, if you will read these things, then you will be knowing the role of the Finance Commission. As I told you, see, Finance Commission basically, एक ये concept याद कर लो. Finance Commission basically, again, it's more like a GPS navigator, and they tell basically how to allocate, how to divide fund versus center versus state. ठीक है, ये फाइनेंस कमीशन का काम होता है. अभी 15 फाइनेंस कमीशन आया है. अभी रिसेंटली बहुत ज्यादा बवाल हुआ था, especially in the southern state. Why? Because they made certain changes when it comes to the allocation of the fund, and they added few norms, like there are certain rules, like on the basis of land, on the basis of population, on the basis of the forest cover, on the basis of the their share in terms of the income tax. So there are certain things, again please read it, क्योंकि ये न्यूज़ में बहुत ज्यादा था. So now coming to our main topic. Prelims में there can be a question related with the, see, there are two kind of schemes. One is central sector schemes. Another is centrally sponsored schemes. देखो, इन दोनों में difference क्या होता है basically? When it comes to the centrally sponsored scheme, as the name suggests, somebody is sponsoring. So CSS are planned transferred to state by the union government, which are implemented through the state governments and in sector falling in state and the concurrent list of the constitution. So basically, पहले अच्छा ये खत्म कर लो. What is central sector scheme? So central sector schemes में क्या होगी? The scheme which is initiated and implemented both by the union government. Okay, and their funds is also, the fund is also going to be given by the central union government itself. Okay, यहाँ पे state का कोई काम नहीं है. So this is all about the center sector schemes. अभी Google, when you will see, I'm not giving you some examples कि कौन-कौन सी schemes आती हैं, centrally sector scheme और कौन से scheme, which schemes comes under the centrally sponsored scheme. This is your homework. Now I would like to tell more about the central sponsored schemes. So here again there will be a 3 category. One is core of core, then core, and then some regional, something like that. So here main differences पता है क्या होता है? In terms of the allocation of the budget, for example, whether it should be 40/60 or 50/50, depending upon the scheme, the state, few of the burden is going to share by the state and few of the burden are going to be sponsored by the union government to implement those schemes. For example, Swachh Bharat. Abhi state doesn't have that much revenue now to sponsor any scheme fully. So that's why union government is helping them to implement those schemes. And how union government is helping? To sponsor money, and then it will be totally under the state government how they're going to implement. Acha, on what areas they can make a certain kind of scheme. So the area which falls under the state and the concurrent list of the constitution. So seventh schedule talks about the list where where union can make law, where state can make law, and where both can make law. So these are the things you need to know. Now, one more thing, mains examination में ये question, there are high chances that this can ask. Reason, you must be knowing one thing, that one size cannot fit to all. Like maybe some schemes are okay for the Andhra Pradesh but not for the Karnataka, or some schemes of okay for Madhya Pradesh but not for the another state. So that's why they are talking about that we should do some more rationalization. मतलब थोड़ा और उस पे काम करना बाकी है. Second, sometime state के लिए it is very difficult to actually, if you'll see their expenditure and their revenue, then you will always notice their expenditure is always higher than their revenue. I'm talking about states. और GST के बाद, after GST, अब तो और भी बुरा हाल है. That's why lots of protests were going on. So what happens? It becomes very difficult for a state to manage all the expenditure. And when it comes to such kind of a scheme, वैसे ही उनको loss हो रहा है, ऐसी scheme लोगे तो और loss होता है. So that's why they are thinking about rationalization of the centrally sponsored scheme. So this topic is very much important for the mains. Prelims में maximum they can ask like maybe which schemes comes under the centrally sponsored scheme. So when I will be dealing that series where I will be talking about the important schemes, then I will be telling you which schemes comes under centrally sponsored scheme and which comes under the central sector schemes. Second thing, there can be a question like they can give an option like whether it is implemented by the union or state, something like that. So that's all for this topic. Moving on, just give me 1 minute. Yeah. So next topic is promotion of Hindi language. अच्छा, news में क्यों था? Recently, on the occasion of the Hindi Divas. Now, why it is celebrated on the 14th September? Because 14th September को ही finally the Constituent Assembly opted we will like the provision related with the Hindi language. That's why we celebrate it on the 14th September in India, and the International Hindi Divas, I think it is celebrated on the 10th January. I'm not sure about the date, just cross check. Okay. So yeah. So recently on the occasion of the Hindi Divas, the Union Home Minister had proposed to promote Hindi as the country's common language. See, yahan se ye news khatam, but as a UPSC aspirant, your work will not finish from here only. Question क्या-क्या आएंगे? अभी तो new education policy भी आ गई, where they talk about again, where they again talking about the 3 language formula. Okay. So this is important for prelims point of view, and mains में तो बहुत questions आ सकते हैं. So constitutional basis क्या एक बारी देख लो. Article 351 talks about it shall be the duty of union to promote and spread the Hindi language. ठीक है भाई, छोड़ दो. Second, there can be Article 120 and 210 regarding language to be used in the Parliament, state legislature, respectively gives the option to transaction business in Hindi as well in English. Acha. So ek to Article 351 talks about Hindi language. Second, Article 120 and 210 talks about that when it comes to the Parliament and the state legislature, then the transaction business that can be done in the Hindi as well in English. एक और चीज है, Article 343 states that Hindi written in Devanagari script is to be the official language of the Union and gives power to Parliament to decide by law the language to be used for the official work. So this is again becomes important. Hindi language under Devanagari script. You must be knowing कि script अलग अलग होती है. For example, see, I don't know much about other languages, but you must be knowing that you have Kannada, one language, then Tamil, that is another language, then Telugu, then Malayalam. I'm not sure, but because I really cannot understand, but maybe their scripts are different from each other. I'm not sure. So अगर यहाँ पे मैं गलत हूँ तो इसको correct कर लेना. But script मतलब how you're going to write it. So Article 343 states Hindi written in Devanagari. Script is to be the official language. मतलब देवनागरी में script होनी चाहिए. ऐसा नहीं आप कुछ भी उठा लोगे. Article 344 provides for the constitution of a parliament committee every 10 years to recommend to the president regarding progressive use of Hindi language for the official purpose of union and restriction on the use of English. ये हो गया. अभी ठीक है, पहले पूरा पढ़ लेते हैं, फिर देखते हैं कि important क्या है. ठीक है. Other constitutional provision क्या है with respect to language? Article 29 talks about every Indian to right to distinct language, script and culture. ठीक है भाई. Article 30 provides for right of minorities to establish and administer educational institution for all minorities, whether based on the language or the religion, that we have covered earlier. Article 358 talks about the facilities for instruction in mother tongue and the primary stage, new education policy. Please go through it. Article 350B, Special Officer for Linguistic Affairs Minorities. Now, एक बार ये भी पढ़ लेते हैं, फिर पूरा summarize करते हैं. 3 language formula क्या है? It is commonly understood that the 3 languages referred to are Hindi, English, and the regional language of the respective state. Teaching of Hindi across the country was crystallized into a policy in an official documented national policy on 1968. It was again mooted in NP 2019, but later the idea was dropped from the draft. State has been following the 2 language formula for many decades, under which only English and one regional language are compulsory. हो गया सब, अब डिटेल देख लेते हैं. Number 1, prelims के पॉइंट से देखते हैं. ठीक है. Number 1, on the दिवस of हिंदी दिवस न्यूज में क्या था? They talk about to promoting हिंदी language. खत्म. इसके बाद न्यूज खत्म. Important क्या है? Prelims के क्या आ सकता है? Maybe there can be a question related with the 8th schedule of the constitution, which is nothing but that deals about the languages. Okay, how many languages are there? 22. ठीक है. Then there can be a question like that there can be a question related with the Article 120 and Article 210. Okay, then here they will not ask you Article 120 क्या बोलता है. There can be a question like in India, when it comes to the transaction businesses in which is happening in the parliament or a state legislature assembly, where do they have any provision for the special language? Yes, they can continue their work in the Hindi and English both. Okay, then yes, they can confuse you with this option, like article, like maybe they can give this option in the examination that Hindi is going to be the official language of union and given power to parliament to decide by law. Okay, no, Hindi language with the Devanagari script. This is important. Second, when constitution came into the picture, so it was actually ऐसा हुआ था starting में कि they thought after 10 years they will remove English language, but because in the southern state people were not very much comfortable in Hindi, mainly they were comfortable in the regional language. So there was a discussion, there was a lots of debate, like they started having this thing that if you will make it compulsory, we are going to separate our state from the India, and so many things. So because government wanted to avoid these clashes, that's why the continuation of English language is still going on. So all these things, maybe exam may, there can be a question related with the for that again you have to go back to the history, when the state divided on the basis of languages, us commission ko hum kya bolte the, and who were the people who were behind that. Then there was a popular person, right now I'm not able to remember his name. He went into the fast somewhere around 50 to 50 days, and because they were imposing Hindi language. So all those things were happened in the past. So maybe there can be a question now. Do we have other areas or other articles where the we can find languages in our constitution? Yes, Article 29 talks about the languages, Article 30 talks about, Article 358 talks about, Article 350b talks about. Then there can be a question related with the three language formula. You must be knowing if you're studying in the generally in here, because what happens, there will be a three languages. One is here right now, most of the CBSE school, I don't know about the state board, but they're following two language formula. What is that? Basically, there will be English and there will be one and another language, जिसको हम लोग बोलते हैं first language, second language, and some school even following this third language वाला thing as well. So क्या है three language formula? So it is commonly understand the three languages refer to Hindi, English, and one regional language of the respective state. So suppose if I take example of Karnataka, Hindi, English, and then Kannada. Okay. Tamil. If I take example of Tamil Nadu, Hindi, English, and Tamil language. Now, if I take example of UP may they can maximum go for Hindi or English. They don't know any other language. Okay. So maybe this three language formula can be applicable in the state where Hindi is not their mother tongue. Okay. So this is also wait. Yeah, so this is one thing. Now, basically, in a new education policy, new policy on education, basically, right now you must be knowing in 2020 it came, and what are the recommendations we have discussed when we were dealing daily current affairs. So you must be knowing ki here again, earlier actually they wanted to introduce this three language formula, but again due to certain clashes and due to certain differences in the opinion, abhi isko drop kar diya gaya hai, but there are chances they are going to pick it up. So maybe there can be a question related with the three language formula. And just make sure when you are reading new policy on education, so just see what is the whether they have talked about Hindi language or not, so that suppose prelims में कहीं से भी question घुमा के पूछे तो you will be able to answer. Okay. Next. So next we have Article 131. Okay. Okay. So basically, recently Kerala and Chhattisgarh government Chhattisgarh have filed a suit in Supreme Court challenging the constitutional validity for various central laws under Article 131 of Indian Constitution. Various certain laws जिसके बारे में उन्होंने क्वेश्चन उठाया है. तो एग्जाम में नहीं पूछेंगे वो कौन से लॉस थे, क्या क्यों था. Mainly you're not writing judiciary का examination. Mainly they can ask question related with what is Article 131. So Article 131 talks about the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Okay. Where the apex court deals with any dispute between the center and the state on the one side and another state on the other side, and two or more states. So basically, ओके, आर्टिकल 131 को अगर मुझे तुम्हें समझाना हो तो इतना समझ लो. आर्टिकल 131 टॉक्स अबाउट द ओरिजिनल jurisdiction of Supreme Court. Okay, so basically, what is the meaning of original jurisdiction? Whenever you heard this thing, original jurisdiction, matlab only Supreme Court is, suppose original jurisdiction of High Court, original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. So whenever this word added, original, matlab that authority or that court is only having the, they have the right to work on those matter. Okay, then there is another word, exclusive. Whenever this word is adding exclusive, matlab only that court is having the right. So wo sab kya hai, wo again पढ़ लेना. So basically, again, here article 131 talks about, suppose if there is a clashes between the union versus state. Okay, state, one state plus another state versus another state. So ऐसे कुछ में होते हैं तब आर्टिकल 131 आता है पिक्चर में, उसके अलावा नहीं आता. वन मोर थिंग, जनरली आर्टिकल 131 कब आता है मतलब सीन में? सपोज इफ देयर इज अ केस रिलेटेड विद द शेयरिंग ऑफ वाटर between two states. Suppose if I'll take example of Kaveri river, border dispute हमेशा कहाँ होता है? कर्नाटका versus तमिलनाडु. So can these two states take use article 131? No. Why? Because generally they work on the matter where the question of law is involved. मतलब क्या होता है कि they are going to basically check कि लॉ कैसे हैम्पर हो रहा है. ये छोटे छोटे मैटर्स की वाटर शेयर में इसको ज्यादा मिल रहा है, उसको मिल रहा है, उससे नहीं करेंगे. मे बी suppose in the sharing of water itself there are certain laws where they have to think कि भाई यहाँ पे इस लॉ की वैलिडिटी खत्म हो रही है. मे बी ऑन दोज मैटर सुप्रीम कोर्ट अपना ओरिजिनल ज्यूरिसडिक्शन यूज कर पाएगा. ओके, here don't get confused, it's a matter of state versus state. Sharing of the water, sharing of water, suppose if I'll take example of Kaveri river, no, in these cases it will not fall under the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Now, a dispute to qualify under article 131, it must involve a question of law or fact on which the existence of legal right of the state or the central depends. मतलब उसके legal right की बात करते हैं या फिर वहां पे question of law involve हो. For example, question of law को हम कैसे involve करेंगे कि using internet, can it be a fundamental right or not? Can it comes under our basic right or not? So ऐसी चीजों पे, these things can comes under the question of law and where the legal right is involved. Here you cannot say that okay, somebody has slapped somebody or some state is doing some work which is hampering another state. So here they cannot use article 131. उसके लिए अलग उनके rules होते हैं, ठीक है? Now, original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court क्या involve नहीं करता है? See here they will tell you in the details so you will understand. So basically, yeah. So original jurisdiction of Supreme Court does not extend. कौन सा matter है? Any treaty, any agreement, any engagement or the similar instrumental executed before the commencement of the constitution and continues to be operational, which provide that jurisdiction of Supreme Court shall not extend. Again, pure polity का है. Please पढ़ लेना कि when it comes to the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, what comes and what involves and what does not includes. Okay. Then a dispute relating to the use, distribution or control of the water of any interstate river. Again, इसके लिए we have a separate rule. Then suits brought by the private individual against the government of India. Again, I will just give you an example. It's a funny. Suppose, just an example. Suppose some person got home quarantine. मतलब suppose कोई इंसान home quarantine हो जाता है. Now that person is not breaching the law, but that person is actually captured by the government, state government, because they think that that person has violated the rules. Okay, now here the person cannot go to the Supreme Court and say that government of this state or government of this government of India has this government is doing injustice towards me. No, here they cannot approach to the Supreme Court. Okay, so these things doesn't fall under the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. What falls, I told you, like state versus state, union versus state, something like that. Now, और कौन सी jurisdiction है Supreme Court की? I will not tell you, but please read it. Advisory, appellate, extraordinary original jurisdiction, and writ jurisdiction. नाम से अगर समझ सकते हो तो समझ जाओगे, otherwise you can read also. Number 1, advisory, जहाँ पे ये president को advise करता है, but recommendation is not binding. कौन सा article involved है? 143. Appellate is nothing. Supreme Court, High Court, District Court. Here you went, you're not happy, you will go here, and you will go here. So ये भी एक होता है appellate jurisdiction का, Supreme Court का. Then we have extraordinary original jurisdiction. So यहाँ पे भी कुछ है कि किस cases में extraordinary original jurisdiction involved होता है, देख लेना वो अपने हिसाब से. Then writ में भी you must be knowing mandamus, habeas corpus, these are the things. ये कब enforce होता है? Basically when it comes to, generally writ jurisdiction वो तब empower करते हैं when it is related with the fundamental rights. So ये सब चीजें बहुत अच्छे से पॉलिटी की लक्ष्मीकांत, या फिर if you are following any other resources, everything is given in a very clear manner. You can read it. And one more thing. Earlier they used to ask multiple questions related with the habeas corpus, mandamus, all these things. I don't know nowadays they are going to ask or not, but maybe there can be a question related with the jurisdiction of. Okay. So news में तो बस इतना था. Exam में, prelims में क्या आ सकता है? Maybe the jurisdiction of Supreme Court. उसके कौन से हैं? एक है original, दूसरा advisory, third है appellate, fourth है आपका writ का. ये कहाँ यूज होते हैं? प्लीज पढ़ लेना, prelims के लिए important है. Okay. Next is removal of Article 370 and 35A. ये तो बहुत interesting कहानी थी. खैर, we are not. I will not be telling you the story, because we have to keep this in our mind that we are preparing for the examination. Okay. So the center decided to end the special status given to the Jammu and Kashmir under Article 370. I'm sure you must be knowing what is Article 370. Article 370 talks about the special status given to the Jammu and Kashmir. अच्छा भाई, इसमें क्या था? Like how they were different, you must be knowing. इनका like other than defense, currency, and external affairs, everything in all the aspects, Jammu Kashmir was having a different role as compared to the rest of the India. Okay, so that was the special status. Article 370 क्या था? बस एक बारी ऐसे पढ़ दे रही हूँ. I'm sure you must be knowing. So Article 370 had a temporary provision with respect to the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which gave special power to the state, allowing to have its own constitution. Okay. According to Article 370, except defense, foreign affairs, and finance and communication, Parliament needs the state government concurrence for applying other law. आप अपने और rules नहीं लगा सकते हो. That was the reason कि बहुत दिनों तक यहाँ पे पंचायत आ ही नहीं पाई थी. Recently, under the Modi government, they held an election, and पहली बार पता नहीं, I'm not remembering the exact number, but I some 20,000 or 15,000 इतने पंचायत पूरे elections हुए थे. So that was all about the Article 370. Now Article 35A क्या है भाई? Article 35A of the Constitution, which stemmed out of the Article 370, gave power to Jammu and Kashmir Assembly to define permanent resident of the state and their special right privileges. ठीक है, थोड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग बनाने के लिए मैं इतना बता देती हूँ कि Article 35A जो था, because of that, a person who is not from Kashmir, they cannot buy a property under property in the Kashmir. Second, again, there was a problem. I'm not talking about the residents, but there was a other problem where it comes to the jobs, promotion. And suppose if a girl, if she's from Kashmir and if she's marrying a guy who is not from Kashmir, then she will be losing her citizenship from there, जो भी उनका होता है. So ये सारी चीजें थी जो कि अभी सस्पेंड हो चुकी हैं. ओके, ये स्क्रैप कैसे हुआ, इसकी बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी है. सी स्क्रैपिंग कैसे पॉसिबल हुई है, इसका अगेन बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी है. इट इज हैविंग अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी एंड यू कैन से दैट इट्स अ ब्यूटी ऑफ आवर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन कि in one side it make it a very rigid and the another side it makes it a very flexible as well. How it is a flexible, I will tell you. Kaise bana? President issued a presidential order under Article 371 of the Constitution. This clause enabled the president to specify the matter which are applicable to Jammu Kashmir in concurrence with the Jammu Kashmir government. ठीक है, you must be knowing कि कश्मीर में अभी प्रेसिडेंट रूल था, राइट? दे वर नॉट हैविंग एनी एंड प्रेसिडेंट रूल में क्या होता है कि जनरली इट डायरेक्टली कम्स अंडर द कंट्रोल ऑफ द यूनियन. सो वहां पे उन्होंने क्या किया, दे अमेंडेड आर्टिकल 377 with the use of Article 370 where they said that the president to specify the matter which were applicable to Jammu Kashmir in the concurrence with the Jammu Kashmir government. So with the use of 370, what they did, they amended Article 367. Article 367 क्या है? So Article 367 contains guidance on how to read and interpret some provision. So basically क्या होता है? There are certain powers which lies with the president, where suppose if there is some ambiguity in the constitution where the guidelines are not specifically given now, so that time president is free to interpret it. Okay, so अभी स्टोरी यहाँ पे ये थी कि कश्मीर की कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली थी. ओके, इन अगेन बैक इन 19 मतलब 50-60 के आसपास. And when Jammu Kashmir became the part of India, that Constituent Assembly got dissolved in that time itself. बहुत पहले की बात है. So Article actually 373 क्या बोलता है? 370 बोलता है कि see, until unless the special power which was given to the Jammu and Kashmir, it got the special power from the Constituent Assembly. So what they did, so here with the help of Article 370, President replaced this Constituent Assembly with the Legislative Assembly. And with the Legislative Assembly, with the help of the Legislative Assembly, they actually recommended and they basically dissolved the assembly and they made it under the president rule and with the concurrence of the governor, they removed Article 370. So see, एग्जाम में क्वेश्चन नहीं आएगा, बस इतना समझ लो कि मतलब if you are interested in polity, if you are interested in political affairs and other these things, then only you can read on how they scrap. प्रीलिम्स में तो नहीं आने वाला, मेंस में भी नहीं पूछेंगे हाउ दे स्क्रैप, बट फॉर योर ओन इंटरेस्ट लाइक यू कैन रीड इट कि how they played with the constitution itself, how they change the rules, how they given the rule of constituent assembly as a legislative assembly, then what kind of power they exercise, then how they see basically उन्होंने कैसे लोगों को अंडर अरेस्ट किया था, देन इंटरनेट बैन किया, ये सारी चीजें हुई, तो वो सब देख लेना, एग्जाम के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है। इम्प्लीकेशन क्या हुआ वो इंपॉर्टेंट है एग्जाम के लिए। अभी दे विल बी नॉट हैविंग एनी सेपरेट फ्लैग। द टेन्योर ऑफ जम्मू कश्मीर असेंबली टू बी 5 years इंस्टेड ऑफ द अर्लियर 6 year। पहले इनकी असेंबली 6 years की होती थी, हम लोग की क्या होती है 5 years की होती है ना, इनकी 6 years की होती थी, अभी 5 years की हो गई है। ओके, Article 356 under which the precedent rule can be imposed in any state will also be applicable to the UT of Jammu and Kashmir. The central quotas law in school, college admission and state government jobs will be applied. मतलब पहले ऐसा भी होता था कि if you're not from Kashmir, so it will be a problem that you cannot get a job under state government in Jammu and Kashmir. So वो सारी चीजें अभी हट गई हैं। Okay, let me check how much time. Yeah, so we have only 5 minutes. Wait. Just for a second. Okay, so implication क्या है इस move के that we have seen. Next, we have only 5 minutes, so अच्छा. So rest of the topic I will cover maybe in the next class. So अभी क्या है, एक another topic is the inner line permit. So here, recently Manipur has launched an online portal for the travelers to seek inner line permit. Ab inner line permit basically, okay, see, it's very difficult to understand few things. Like I will just tell you one basic funda to remember. What are the states that comes under the inner line permit? So basically, all the northeastern state which share the boundary with the Myanmar, they comes under this inner line permit is following. Okay. अच्छा, so basically क्या है inner line permit? So it's a travel document that allows an Indian citizen to visit or stay in a state that is protected under the ILP system. ठीक है? Foreigners के लिए for foreigners they need a protected area permit, that is a PAP, whereas Indians के लिए होता है ILP. Okay, this is different from the ILP. In how many states this is happening? In the 4 states: Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur and Mizoram. So again they are sharing border with the Myanmar. ऐसा कहीं लिखा नहीं है, common sense. No Indian citizen can visit. अच्छा, inner line permit में basically है क्या, like if you want to visit in these states, you have to take a permission or you have to register yourself either by online or physically. Okay. And history में जाके देख लेना ये क्यों हुआ था. So that concept was brought up by the British India. Why? Because they wanted to protect this forest area for their own commercial interest. And उसके बाद भी वो चीजें चलती आई हैं. क्यों चलती आई हैं? Basically, this was to address the local, basically, मतलब simply they wanted to protect their area. That's why this inner line permit came into the news, and afterward also it is continuing. Basically, maximum they can ask question: inner line permit, which state in India is following the inner line pyramid. So only 4 states, Manipur, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh and Mizoram. याद करने का एक simple तरीका है, all these states which is sharing border with the Myanmar. Okay, so next topic is the Northeastern Council. This I will be discussing tomorrow. And then, okay, then we will be talking about, okay, so this is quite lengthy topic, so I will discuss tomorrow. इतना okay, ये next topic ये है Dadar and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu merge. So basically, as per the 2019 Constitutional Amendment Act, these two UTs has merged. Okay, now I will ask this question: does we require Article 368 to implement such kind of the policy? No, we don't require. You must be knowing why, because here you can even pass with the simple majority. You don't need to go for the special majority or the state rectification of the state and so on. So abhi ye merge ho chuki hai. This is the that was in the news now. Okay, so yes, there can be a question like whether in examination there can be a question whether we need 368. No, we don't need 368. And basically after this, what else is important here? So basically now the jurisdiction, you must be knowing in India we have total 24 high courts. Though we have 28 states, but we have only 24 high courts. Why? Because sometimes 2 states is having one single high court. So now earlier, now the Bombay High Court, or you can say that the Bombay High Court is going to see the matter which is involved with Dadar and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu. So this is another important point. Third, after with this, we have now total 8 union territories. And 8 union territories कौन-कौन से? Andaman Nicobar, Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, Chandigarh, Daman and Diu, and Dadar and Nagar Haveli 1, then Delhi, Puducherry, Lakshadweep. Out of these, how many union territories we have legislative assembly? So we have Jammu Kashmir is having legislative assembly, Delhi is having legislative assembly, and Puducherry is having legislative assembly. That's it. Then we will discussing about the 6th schedule. This is an interesting topic, so that we will discuss tomorrow. So we are left with 2 topics that we are going to cover tomorrow. One is 6th schedule, another is Northeastern Council. So with this, our almost half of the topics are covered in polity. Only judiciary and one miscellaneous topic is remaining in the picture. So maybe that will also be covered in the coming classes, and then we will initiate economics or then current affairs. And if you have any doubt, you can post your question in the comment section, and I will try to solve as soon as it is possible. So thank you. Thank you for listening me, and we'll meet in the next class.